Welcome back, everyone, and welcome into your latest TDR Cannabis Advice presented by Dutchie. Hope everyone's having a good weekend as we get set for another big week coming up and hopefully some news out of Washington. The last couple of episodes here on TDR Cannabis Advice, I've talked about some of the groundwork that's being laid, like RFK and Pam Bondi in Chicago, about the crackdown on vapes, as well as some of these proposed rules that have been cut by the DOJ, but rescheduling actually staying in place. And in addition to that, if rescheduling is announced, how bills like safer banking and States 2.0 will now take center stage over the next coming months. So I want to continue on this topic in a series of episodes where we explain a number of things, where today we're taking a walk through how a bill actually becomes law in Washington. And we'll also use the two big ones, which is safer banking and States 2.0, and how these bills from start to finish become into law. Because I'm sure some of you have asked yourself, why hasn't banking laws passed yet? Or how does States 2.0 go from idea to actual law? So this episode is for you. We'll break down step by step, clear, no surprises on how everything goes from an idea to passed into law. So let's get into it. This is the latest TDR Cannabis Advice presented by Dutchie. Let's first begin with the roadmap. How does a bill move through Congress? 1, a member of Congress introduces it, either in the House or the Senate. 2, it's then sent to a committee that handles that topic: banking, justice, commerce, whatever. 3, the committee can hold hearings, invite experts, tweak the bill, what's called a markup, then vote it out of committee if they want. 4, if it comes out of committee, it needs floor time in that chamber, meaning the House or Senate, to be debated on and voted on. 5, if it passes one chamber, it travels to the other chamber and repeats, committees to floor. Then you have 6, if both pass the bill but with different language, they must reconcile those differences, often via a conference committee, until both chambers agree on the exact same text. Then number 7, the bill goes to the president. He can sign it into law or veto it. If vetoed, Congress can override with 2/3 majorities in both chambers. But there's one twist. In the Senate, most bills need 60 votes to end debate so you can move on to a final vote. That's called cloture. Without 60, a senator or a group can use the filibuster to delay or block the bill, which we all know has happened time and time again pertaining to safer. So with that, let's apply that to safer banking. That's the bill aiming to allow banks and credit unions to legally work with cannabis businesses operating under state law without fearing federal penalties. So as it stands right now, the lead Democrat in the Senate is Senator Jeff Merkley. He's from Oregon. On the Republican side, it's Senator Bernie Moreno out of Ohio, who is acting as a GOP co-sponsor and lead backer. Then in the House, you have Representative Dave Joyce, who's out of Ohio. He remains the main GOP voice for banking reforms. So what's happened so far? Safer banking passed out of the Senate Banking Committee with a bipartisan vote, but it has not yet been scheduled for a full Senate floor vote. That means leadership hasn't put it on the calendar. So here's what needs to happen next for safer to become law. 1, the bill needs to be formally introduced, if refiled, in both the House and Senate. 2, committee hearings and markup to finalize details. 3, Senate Majority Leader John Thune must schedule it for floor debate, and this is a key bottleneck. 4, in the Senate to end debate, otherwise known as the filibuster, you need 60 votes for cloture. If hit, then the final vote only needs a simple majority, 51 plus depending on presence. 5, the House must also pass the companion bill, and any differences need to be resolved. Then number 6, it goes to who else? President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, for signature. Let's also point out too that swing votes matter. You'll need Republicans willing to break with party if needed, and Democrats who hold firm. Support from state attorneys general, business groups, and public safety advocates. This always helps a lot. So next up, let's now focus on States 2.0, the strengthening the 10th Amendment through Entrusting States Act. This bill is about protecting states that have legalized cannabis from federal interference and setting basic guardrails like testing, labeling, product safety, and interstate commerce between legal states. Legal states here, everyone. So where does States 2.0 stand as of September of 2025? Well, first up, it was introduced in the House by Republican Dave Joyce with bipartisan co-sponsors. It has been referred to several committees, including those that handle commerce, judiciary, and infrastructure. It's still in committee, but it's waiting for hearings and markup. So here's what States 2.0 would need to become come into law. 1. Committee action in the House. Hearings, debate, markup, and committee vote. 2. You have the House floor vote and passage. 3. Introduction of a Senate version by a senator, likely somebody already supporting cannabis reform and willing to sponsor and co-lead. Number 4 is committee work in the Senate, in the hearings and the markup. Then there's number 5, floor scheduling in the Senate, which again depends on Majority Leader John Thune deciding to bring it up. Number 6, the big one, getting 60 votes for cloture to overcome any filibuster threat. Number 7, final Senate vote with a simple majority once cloture is secured. Then number 8, resolve any differences if the House and Senate texts differ. And then number 9, you guessed it, back to the man himself, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump's desk for signature. But here's also something important to note about States 2.0 because it affects broader issues like criminal law, federal versus state powers. It's more complex and politically sensitive, so floor time is going to be harder to secure without showing broad public and bipartisan support. You need bipartisan support here. So now let's look at the Senate leadership and the 60-vote threshold because this is where many bills stall. The Senate Majority Leader, currently John Thune out of South Dakota, he's a Republican. He controls when bills reach the floor. Even if a bill has strong support in committees, if Thune doesn't schedule it, it doesn't move. And we've seen that, obviously, with Chuck Schumer in the past. Then, even with the bill on the floor, filibuster rules often require 60 votes for cloture to shut off debate. If you don't have 60, opponents can delay or block it indefinitely. And we all know this with safer banking. So the two big handles lawmakers watch for are 1, floor time, making sure leadership agrees to schedule the bill. Next is the 60 vote count, having enough senators publicly committed to voting yes or at least supporting cloture. So in conclusion, without those, even a bill everyone agrees with in principle can still stay stuck. This is politics at its finest. Sounds confusing, doesn't it? So really, what could shift things enough to push safer banking or States 2.0 forward? Well, first you got to look at federal rescheduling of cannabis from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. Once that happens, the narrative changes real fast. So why could it look to move real fast? Because it could change how risky cannabis has looked in the past, and for more senators to now support it, it signals legitimacy once it's rescheduled. You also have to look at state attorneys general, governors, regulators. They're all increasingly speaking out in favor of banking reform and safer regulation. That gives political cover. Then you got public safety and tax revenue arguments, reminding legislators about the benefits: less cash crime, better oversight, and more tax collection. Another reason is coalition building and bipartisan co-sponsors, visible support from influential senators, and public statements that show 60-vote potential. Also watch for when leadership like Thune, chairs of committees who schedule hearings or bring up the bill in speeches. That tends to signal some serious momentum. So really, when you bring this all in, here's the path and how it looks right now for safer banking. It's reintroduced, clear in the committee, then floor time under John Thune with 60 votes for cloture, then Senate plus House agreement, and then the signature from the president. And for States 2.0, still earlier in the process, committee work, House passage, Senate version, securing the 60-vote threshold, then as I said before, the final steps, again signature by the president, Donald J. Trump. If there's one thing to take away in the current Senate with John Thune as the majority leader, floor scheduling and 60-vote cloture are the gatekeepers. When you see those two things lined up, you know the bill is getting some serious attention. If not, then it's likely stuck, which we all know when it comes to safer, we've experienced for the past 10 years. It's also important to note, too, regarding safer banking, as many as 32 attorney generals want to see bank regulation now, a story that we did a couple of weeks ago. So that is support that this bill could get, especially, as I said before, we get a federal rescheduling announcement. I hope all these videos are coming together and making sense for you, because this is part of the process and the groundwork that's being laid. But to really understand where we are today, an announcement that could happen, what are the next steps and chapters about cannabis reform that we could experience? If you like this breakdown, as I always say, leave some comments below. Reach out with any questions. Happy to give you some feedback in any way possible I can be helpful for you. One last thing, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications. We'd appreciate it here at TDR. That's it for now. Lots to think about, but as I always say, stay open-minded, stay connected, and I'll see you in the next video, everyone. Thanks again for watching. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and this has been the latest TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchie. Thanks for watching.